Mark, this is a video that I did a little while ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get your input on it because you were on hollybobs, weren't you? You planned that well. West Ham winning
Yeah.
their first trophy in God knows how long. Did you book that? Did the missus book that? I'm not sure exactly what went wrong there. You weren't too confident about us winning it, or?
Do you know what? I didn't really think about it, I'll be honest. It was a bit stupid. And then, as it got nearer the time, obviously, I started realising that, thinking, oh, yeah, I've got to keep an eye on this final because this actually might happen. I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd ever get that far. I didn't really think we'd win the competition when we started. I know we always went, oh, yeah, this is the one we could win. But I thought, yeah, West Ham are going to win a bloody trophy. We'll get knocked out. And bearing in mind, we had a bad season. We were pretty poor in the Premier League. So it was always kind of inevitable in my mind that we were going to get knocked out. So obviously then when we started getting nearer the time, thinking, all right, and when's this final? And I realised, mate, flying to Mallorca on the day of the final, but,
Yeah, you weren't able to get the
worst places to watch it, I suppose.
Weren't able to get the quick cancellation fee to Prague, I guess. Sunny beaches for, dusty old Prague. I guess the missus didn't like that one too much. But we're here to talk about David Moyes. Obviously, like I said, I did a video on that, stick or twist David Moyes. And since then, a fair bit's changed, like we've got the director of football in, which is a massive change for the club. There's also no idea as to whether David Moyes is going to get a new deal. Like, what's your thoughts on David Moyes, mate? Has it changed? Because I know that throughout the season we've been quite critical of David Moyes.
Yeah.
But I can see the West Ham fan base. A lot of people are starting to warm back to David Moyes. Are you joining them, or are you standing firm that this is not someone you want in charge of the football club?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because David Moyes effectively doesn't play attractive football. Like we've seen that. He's not really renowned for that. He's quite obvious that because last season was supposed to be our change and we're going to be this more possession-based sexy team that's going to play lovely football and take it to teams. He can't do it. Like, he's proven he cannot manage a team like that. What David Moyes is good at is counter-attack football, sit back, defend. You have the ball for 80% of the game, but when we've got it, we're going to be really effective with it. So I'm kind of just resigned to that now. Like, that's where I'm at with David Moyes. I just think that let's not try and pretend that he's capable of changing things. I'd rather him not. I'd rather him, I don't want to be in another situation where what we had last season. But looking at David Moyes' record, mate, so he's been 4 seasons effectively at West Ham since he's come back. So he's going to his 5th. First one, he kept us up from relegation when he came in after Pellegrini. He saved us. The second season, COVID year, we finished 6th. The third season, we finished 7th in the Premier League, and we got to the semi-final of the Europa League. And then the 4th season, he kept us up after albeit his mistake, trying to change the system, but we won a cup as well. So they actually look at those records. You think that is a really good record for a West Ham manager. You can't argue with it. So as much as I don't like the system, and I'm sure a lot of fans don't enjoy it, because let's be honest, it's not fun to watch. Who wants to watch West Ham just defend for the vast majority of a game? It doesn't matter who we're playing against, whether it's Southampton, we just sit back and go, right, we don't really want the ball. When we got it, we'll try and counter-attack. It's not great to watch because you're just nervous because all the time the other team's got the ball. But it's effective, mate, isn't it? Like, we can't deny that it works. Like, it has worked because I've just gone through that, and that style of football got us that. So I can't deny that. Not saying my stance has changed; it hasn't. I do think I do want to change. Ultimately, I do want a different approach to West Ham. But if we're going to stick with David Moyes, then we've got to stick with the system. And at the moment, I don't really mind sticking with David Moyes because ultimately he deserves it. He deserves another crack. He deserves another season. I think it'd be very harsh now to pull to say to him, no, thanks a lot, off you go, because of his record's been so good. What does concern me, mate, though, is the fact it's his last year on his deal. I'm really torn with all of this. I don't know what's going on at West Ham. I get the sense that the club probably wants to part way with David Moyes, that the club probably have an idea of what they want to do. I think the director of football's probably got an idea of the guy he wants in charge. I kind of get this feeling. But because David Moyes has just won a trophy, they're probably thinking, well, we can't sack him. We can't do that. There'd be uproar. It's not fair on the guy. So maybe they're just going to sort of bide their time with him and see what happens, with the idea knowing that really we know who we want afterwards. And that's my feeling. One question I was going to throw to you, though, Riley, is what would you feel like if there's just theoretically, if we're in, let's say we're in the top 6 at Christmas, does David Moyes deserve a new contract? Does West Ham then go, right, this is the man to keep leading us, we're going to offer him another 3-year deal? Do you think that's the right thing to do, or would you still think no, we're going to look to change? Where are you sitting on the David Moyes front? We're going to get back to the video really shortly, but I just want to let you know this video is actually sponsored by NordVPN. Now, NordVPN are a private network that allow you as a fan to watch games from the comfort of your own home. You can change the region that you're in. It also allows you to watch films, TV shows, things like that. Now, the other big thing is it's also on travel costs. So being West Ham, where you're in Europe again, and also you might want to go on holiday, but you can also save some money on your flights, on your hotels, things like that. It's really worth it. And look, for the monthly subscription, okay, it's less than a pint or a coffee a month. Now, if you go to the link below and using nordvpn.com/West Ham Way, you get 4 months free, completely free. And also after that, you get a 30-day money back guarantee. So just click on the link, go on it, give it a try, see what you think. Anyway, back to the video.
Mate, I mean, there's two ways of looking at this for me. So you've got kind of like what I would call the Bournemouth stance. You know, what Gary O'Neill did at Bournemouth was incredible. He managed to keep them up when pretty much everyone, including myself, had them rock bottom of the table. He basically had a championship side and led him 16th in the table. He did amazingly. However, they brought in a new manager who they thought to themselves is going to lead them in a better direction. Who knows if that's true or not? You know, who knows what he's going to do next season? They might get relegated with him, but who knows? And then you've also got the Crystal Palace stance, which is they've just brought in Roy Hodgson to finish off the end of the season. And because he's had a good end to the season, they've said, well, do you know what? Why don't you stay on as manager for next season? And that for me just seems stupid because one, Roy Hodgson is not going to stay on as manager for too long. Two, he's not going to come in with these brand new ideas. He basically just retired. He's been brought out of retirement. He's not really hungry for it. So you've got those, you know, is loyalty sometimes maybe a little bit too overrated? Yes, David Moyes has been incredible for West Ham. And yes, he's got a perfect record. But is it, you know, are we just sitting on borrowed time? We saw last season the way things are capitulated under Moyes. If Pochettino turned around, I know he's just gone to Chelsea, but if Pochettino turned around prior to that and said, "Oh, you know, I want the West Ham job," if a top manager came in and said, "I want the West Ham job," if you wouldn't keep David Moyes just on his merits, then obviously there is an argument to be had that, you know, you need to look for a better manager, because I don't know how much time David Moyes has realistically got at West Ham. Yes, he keeps pulling off on the paper, you know, on the, like you say, your little list. I've kept us relegation, European football 3 years running, won us a European trophy. You can't disregard that, you know. No. However, is there a manager who's going to maybe not replicate that, but at least be a manager for the future? Because when I see David Moyes, I see a manager who doesn't have this sort of vision of his football club. You know, he kind of takes it season by season. You get someone in like Graham Potter, for instance, and you feel like that's a manager for the future. Eddie Howe, you know, these young managers that are going to come in with these kind of manifestations of what they want to achieve at a football club. I can't help but think that David Moyes is sitting on borrowed time. And I know that sounds really, really harsh because of what he's achieved at this football club. But it's the same with Roy Hodgson for me. You know, yes, he had a really, really good end to the season, but how long can he realistically be in that Palace job? And it's not going to put them in a great place in the future because, you know, these are managers who potentially are on their last jobs. So I'm honestly not quite sure where I sit on David Moyes. I think he probably does deserve the start of the season. But if I was the director of football right now, or the technical director, sorry, I would be looking at in this year, you know, I'd give David Moyes maybe this year. I'd have a short list of candidates that I'd be looking to get in next year. And regardless of what he achieves this season, I still think we need to bring in a new manager who's going to bring a new way of playing football. And I mean, look at what Arteta's achieved at Arsenal, the way he's transformed the football club, the direction that they're going in now, and the line that they're going on. I don't see this as sustainable. You know, we saw that last season. If we didn't win that Conference League final, we wouldn't have European football this year, and we would have finished 16th. You know, that was one win, and albeit it was not fluky, but it wasn't a convincing win from David Moyes' team. You know what I mean? So maybe I'm being way too harsh here. Maybe I'm, you know, but for me, I can't, you know, it sounds harsh, but what you did last season was last season. I'm now thinking about this season.
Oh, you know? Yeah.
So I'm honestly not sure where I sit on David Moyes. He deserves to start this season, but I certainly probably wouldn't be looking to extend his contract, regardless of where we sit in the Premier League.
Yeah, I've got sort of 2 points on it, really, to sort of my sort of final thoughts on the what we're talking about. First of all, you're right. I do think he deserves another year. I know you've just touched on the whole Roy Hodgson thing. I think this is slightly different, only in the fact that because Roy Hodgson just came in, did a rescue mission and done it.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a quite stupid appointment for Palace. I think if I'd be quite depressed if I was a Palace fan, just thinking, well, you know, it's just what's the point? It's not really forward thinking. I think West Ham actually are forward thinking at the moment, and I know we keep reverting back to this whole Tim Steidten appointment, but it is forward thinking. This is a different approach from West Ham now, and make no mistake about it. Although David Moyes does deserve another season, another crack at this, and rightly so. Tim Steidten, he's his boss now. We might be able to address it up slightly differently, and I'm sure they might be selling it to Moyes slightly different, but ultimately that is the case. The technical director will be reporting to effectively, and because Tim Steidten's in charge of the manager appointments, he's in charge of the player recruitment. He's going to be overseeing that operation. So David Moyes has got to buy into Steidten now. That's going to be the interesting dynamic. Is that going to work? We've seen David Moyes, how stubborn he is. He's so stubborn. He's one of the most stubborn men managers we've ever had at West Ham. I do struggle to see how he's going to suddenly just go, yeah, I've got this guy's now sort of telling me who we're getting and I'm just going to be fine with it. All right, he might have a say in it, but ultimately he's probably not going to get the ultimate say. So that is going to be really interesting. But that being said, I still think that he deserves it. I do think this is David Moyes' final season. I do think, unless that this marriage works brilliantly, that him and Steidten work brilliantly together. That it's a marriage made in heaven, and we are in the top 6 at Christmas. If that is the case, and I think the club will then go, right, I think actually we'll keep David Moyes on. He's proving that he can work under these circumstances. I'm not convinced that will happen, though. I think that'd be quite surprising. My theory is that I think that this Steidten appointment and what's going on at West Ham and how we're managing the Declan Rice sale and things like that, I'm starting to suspect that there are other people involved here, possibly our new owners. I wonder whether the club is being sold. They know who's going to buy the club. The only reason they're not doing it is because of the whole David Gold share situation where they can't buy them at the moment. And they're probably, this could be a total, this is a theory, it could be totally wrong, but I'm starting to get the feeling that there's something going on here. That people that are buying the club are saying, like, we want a director of football in. We want this to happen. If we're going to buy West Ham, that we want it running properly. Because things just seem a little bit different all of a sudden. Do you know what I mean? Just too much change so quick. And this isn't David Sullivan to me. David Sullivan sells players badly, as we know. And all of a sudden, he's really good at it. Where's that come from? He's being really stubborn. And no, he's not being rolled over. Where usually he just gives in to any number he seems to get. Yeah, all right, we sold him. So that's changed. And also, why would he appoint a technical director? We know David Sullivan's a massive control freak who wants to pick players for the manager. Why is he suddenly handing the reins over to a director of football? So something tells me something's changing at West Ham. And I get the feeling that possibly the manager's going to be soon to change. That's the only reason David Moyes is being kept on is purely because he's done really well over the last 4 years. And they thought, well, we can't get rid of him. It's harsh. Let's let him see how he gets on. But I reckon David Sullivan or whatever, when they've had these meetings with Steidten, Moyes and Sullivan, they must have said, David, this is the deal. If you're getting kept on, you understand that this is the guy's coming in and he's going to be making the decisions. And David Moyes has obviously had to say, okay, fine. But I do wonder how it's going to work. That's my only concern. And then I dare say it, mate, if we have a bad start, I just think David Moyes will be out the door very quickly. If West Ham are in the bottom half of the table after 10 games and we're struggling, he'll be gone. And I imagine that Tim Steidten knows who he wants straight away. He probably goes, yeah, I know the top sort of 3 managers I want to work with. I get that feeling. So although the video is based on do we back or sack David Moyes, I think they're right to back him at the moment. And if they're going to give him a new deal, it's got to be on the basis that we're doing really well, that these two work together. I think if there's any problems, I can see David Moyes going really quickly. He'll be out the door. And let's be honest, mate, because of the fact he's in the last year of his contract, it's not going to be a massive payoff. So it probably suits all parties. But so if you've got a crystal ball, Riley, just to wrap this up, what do you see if West Ham? Do you see David Moyes being the manager at the end of the season?
Mate, I'm honestly not sure, to be honest with you, because I feel like the club's going in a really good direction at the moment, and David Moyes for me buys well. Like I don't think there's a player that he's bought that like maybe doesn't make sense for the system, but quality wise or talent wise, he doesn't really buy players that aren't good enough for the football club. So I feel like he'll have a good transfer window and spend the Rice money well. I just can't help that feeling in the back of my head that, like I said, what he's achieved at the football club I'll always be thankful for, but it's happened, it's done. We got to think about the future, and David Moyes is not a manager for the future. David Moyes has a glass ceiling, and I'm not really. It kind of looks like he's out of ideas, and I just think if we have a bad 5 or 10 game streak at the start of the season, why wouldn't we be looking to bring in a new manager? Because he's only on a 1 year deal, and I feel like maybe he'd have to do something really crazy this season to get a contract extension. For me, like you said, maybe like top 6 at Christmas. Even that, I think, maybe might not be enough. I don't know, but that would be a really big struggle. I don't even think we'll be near the top 6 by Christmas time. I think it'll be a massive struggle. So I guess, yeah, for me, I don't think he's going to be manager come the end of the season. And unfortunately, because of his past mistakes, I think every owner and the technical director would have the say, well, look, maybe turn it around last season, but we don't want 16th. We don't want 14th. We don't want you to turn it around in that manner. We should be really, really up there. So unfortunately, you've run out of games.
Yeah, we said it last season. We said it a couple of times last season that if David Moyes had about, regardless of the let's put a pin in the Conference League win, focus on the Premier League. West Ham cannot have another season down the bottom of the end of the table. I think David Moyes is under a massive amount of pressure this season. Really is. I think West Ham need, we've got Bournemouth and Chelsea the first 2 games, and we need 4 points from those games straight away. He's going to want a strong start up there. We cannot afford, because remember last season we lost our first 2 games and we never recovered from that. And we can't have that again. And I genuinely believe he'll be under pressure from day one. I really do. I think if we go to Bournemouth and lose, there'll be straight away question marks going, well, hang on, what's going on? We're not having this again. We're not having another season where we've got to scrap it down the bottom. I really do. I think he's under big pressure. But my gut feeling tells me I think he'll see out the season. But I get the feeling that they'll be looking to replace. But as I say, he'll be under big, big, big pressure.